Well. We finally have Counter-Strike 1.7. Counter-Strike Global Offensive 2. Counter-Strike Condition 1. I'm not good at remembering names. Counter-Strike 2 is here, all in its Source 2 glory, so let's talk about it. I thought I'd make a video which is basically a showcase and a retrospective of classic maps between CS2 and the original game. Right now there's about 10 maps in the game, with most of them being carried over from CSGO and given a Source 2 update. Some maps got a full treatment, and some of them got a basic update. But in this video, we'll be taking a look at 6 of those maps which have been in the series for almost 20 years, so let's get started. Starting off, we have the absolute legend Dust 2. This map is the definitive way of showing how much graphics and games have developed over the past 2 decades. In the original game, we have a very basic geometry with flat walls, decals, and mostly just boxes as props everywhere. Another thing to note is the baked lighting. Baked lighting was a big step up from the early days, like in Doom where you had to light each sector manually. But of course, going from baked lighting, we head over to dynamic lighting that's being rendered in real time. Everything on screen casts a shadow, and dynamic props like buckets, barrels, or small boxes move their shadows when shot. Dust 2 in CS2 is a gigantic leap forward from its original counterpart. Where previously we had a monotonous color tone of everything being yellow in the map, now we have shades of warm colors mixed in with cooler lightings in some of the interior areas. There are moving dust particles, God rays, and reflections on shiny materials. One of the biggest advancements since CS 1.6 is the 3D skybox that was introduced in the Source engine. And in Counter-Strike Source, of course, the 3D skybox plays a vital role in establishing the locale of the map you're in this case, a Middle Eastern city. Along with that, we have to mention the 3D props usage and how complex the geometry has gotten. Gold Source maps used brushes to create their quote-unquote props, so most of them were just boxes. But now it feels like an actual part of a city with all sorts of things lying around, very detailed. Inferno was another map I loved to play on because of its old classical style architecture. This was one of the more detailed OG maps that wasn't just flat walls and basic geometry. Inferno got quite the update over the years and was gradually expanded upon in each release of the game. So when I booted up the current edition of the map, I was surprised to see how much of an amazing makeover it had gotten. One thing I really liked about this map is the height of the buildings were increased, which made them feel like towering over you and making the map feel congested even though it's not. But alongside that, the current version also has quite a bit of additional new areas as well, even though they're small, making the gameplay dynamic much more versatile. Of course, like Dust 2 and every other map, the lighting and atmosphere has been made much more realistic. Previously, Inferno had this sort of drab greenish tint to its textures, but now it feels like an actual place you can visit somewhere in Italy or something. And speaking of Italy, here's Italy. I love how the map diverges into 2 directions from the CT spawn, and the opposing team can't really judge where the players are gonna come from. The original Italy map wasn't that big, but the multiple routes it had in the middle made playing on it very fun. One thing I have to note is that the interiors in old CS maps always felt off to me. They looked very out of proportions when you came in from the outside, but of course, that all improved in the future iterations of the map. The dusky feel of the new map is very much a mood for me. I prefer it to the usual sunny day atmospheres we see in the other maps. Like Inferno, Italy also now has multiple sub-routes in addition to the original ones it had, and I really like how the interiors of all of these maps look now. And like Dust 2, the skybox adds a sense of depth to the place. You can see taller buildings and houses in the distance surrounding the place. Nuke is a map that I've never been fond of and still am not. I don't know what it is exactly, but I always found this map to be strange. But anyway, it's part of the original lineup and I'm sure many people love this map. The one thing I did like about it when I played it was that it reminded me a lot of Half-Life and Black Mesa. But starting with Counter-Strike Source, Nuke got a complete overhaul and the current iteration of that looks spectacular visually. Layout-wise, it's still the same old Nuke most of the place, but the Source 2 update can be really felt here. With multiple light sources and the shadows that show up because of them, this definitely does feel like a next-gen edition of the map. Then comes Classic Office. Man, I love this map. The original one had the snowy theme, with the interiors feeling just as cold because of the white lights it had. The multiple entry points for the CTs also made this map very fun, where you would have to guess where they're gonna come in from. Of course, I was just as glad to see that the snowy theme remained and the interiors looked just as depressing as an actual office workspace. Now I'm gonna drift off a bit from the map themselves to talk about the game a little. Most of my childhood and the Counter-Strike experience as a whole I had was in Counter-Strike 1.6. And since I couldn't play or buy Counter-Strike Source at the time, it took me a long time to get back into the series with CSGO. But then again, if I ever felt like playing some CS, I would just boot up the original. But after CS2's release, I don't know what it is, but I'm starting to log in more hours on here too. Maybe it's because of the netcode changes or something that they did, but the game now feels much more fun. I'm not saying that CSGO wasn't fun, but for a man who has the skills of a modern video game journalist, I feel like CSGO had a very steep learning curve. Now that CS2's out, I play it from time to time, and it feels like I can actually have fun now. Another strange thing was the complete removal of CSGO as an individual game. It just kind of feels odd that I can go back to CS 1.6 or CS Source, but not CSGO, at least not officially. But the bipolar side of me says that CS2 is what CSGO should have always been from the start, a proper sequel to Counter-Strike Source, running on the new Source 2 engine. But since Valve took their sweet time to make Source 2, CSGO ran on the original Source engine instead. I don't know, it's a strange topic to talk about. The only major drawback I can think of is that people with low-end PCs who played CSGO will definitely have some issue running this, especially people with old or very weak GPUs. Overall, it's exciting to say the least. Now if Valve could only take Source 2 and make another Half-Life game. Hi, Rad Clone number 5642 here. Rad Clone number 5641 has been shot. Thanks for watching, and a big thanks to these benefactors for supporting the channel: Shepard, TTG, Robocop, Noel, Nobody Important, Franco Sanlehi, Cheemsboger, Justin Imbergriff, Taiwanesium, Unusual, Tedosaur, Otokan Nachos, T-Boy301, Lambdre, Decoder Mapping, Skyclad, Roadkill, Quiltman, Anose98, Walter, Taylor, Hobgobbies, NoClick, Geode, Fisher Grice, Hawk Assault, Mr. Swaban, Jelen, A Normal Street Lamp, TRR Droid, and Bipullet. Thanks again, and see you in the next one.